Hello, I'm JV Miller. We're talking about fantasy sports. We've got good news and bad news. First, the bad news. Even though fantasy sports can be great fun, you can't expect to win over an extended period of time. Much like craps, video poker, roulette, slots, keno, etc., fantasy sports must be regarded as being strictly entertainment. The reason is, of course, is that the odds are always tilted against the player, sometimes slightly, sometimes not so slightly, but the house always enjoys the mathematical advantage in fantasy sports. Players are ultimately bound to lose. The law of numbers cannot be violated for an extended length of time. The best and brightest minds in fantasy sports are graduating to real sports betting in the tens of thousands. If you find that you're usually better than most of your friends at fantasy sports, if you get it while others don't, if that's you, you know what I'm talking about, you could make a killing at real sports betting. Yes, I know there are people who have won a fortune playing fantasy sports. Those people make headlines. They come from places like Iowa, risk $25 and hit the main jackpot. But as a percentage of the whole, only a tiny number of players ever so much as break even. If you're good at fantasy sports, but you never seem to make any money, it's because it's fixed. You never will. But there's good news. In just a moment, first I want to make doubly clear that in spite of what you've read or seen or heard, there is no such thing as a professional fantasy sports player. The only way to win at fantasy sports over the long term is to either own the company or cheat, or both. If you think you have a surefire winning system for fantasy sports, don't quit your day job. It doesn't matter how well you understand the game. Over any extended period of time, nothing will overcome those negative expectations. Mind you, we're not saying don't play fantasy sports. It's a lot of fun, play it. Better than an evening watching Dancing with the Stars. We're just saying you can't make a long-term profit from doing it. However, here's the good news. There are ways to gamble which offer beatable propositions. One is poker, sometimes blackjack, but the best and most promising way is sports betting. People in all 50 states and in every civilized country place bets with sports books all around the world where it's legal for them to operate. Against poker, for example, all you have to do is beat the other guys at the table, or girls. The casino's profit comes from renting the chairs. If you're better at poker than the other experts at the table, then you figure to win. Against blackjack, it's not as easy. The trick is to know which cards remain in the deck and their relevance to the odds concerning whether you'll win the next hand. There are other concerns like getting caught counting cards. It is legal to count cards in Las Vegas, but it's also legal for them to throw you out for it. If you're going to do it, you should have a keno ticket sticking out of your pocket. They'll never suspect someone dumb enough to play keno would know how to count cards. With sports betting, you're not going head-to-head against the house or the experts. You can't beat those guys. The bookmaker's role is just to be a broker, to hold the money and to charge a fee for the service regardless of who wins. You're pitting your judgment against the opinion of the general betting public. You can beat those guys. That's the critical difference that makes sports betting a beatable proposition. The point spread is not a prediction of who will win. It's a prediction of public opinion about who will win. The bookmaker adjusts the point spread to make sure there's an acceptable amount of action on both sides, because the bookmaker's not in business to gamble. Consequently, if you can outwit public opinion more than 52.38% of the time, which is the break even, you figure to be a winner over the long haul. Fantasy sports customers already know many of the fundamentals, such as doing your own research, remaining objective, not letting your emotions get in the way, finding the differences between perennial winners and losers. What you don't know yet is what we can teach you. Here at ProfessionalGambler.com, we can help you earn while you learn. We publish Professional Gambler newsletter, a staple for every serious sports bettor. You get our picks, analysis, money management expertise, how-to articles, and more. You'll notice we allow no advertising and we accept no revenue from sportsbooks. We've been featured in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and Gambling Times magazine calls us perhaps the last legitimate handicappers for hire on the web. Opportunity knocks, but it won't beat down the door. What you should do right now is go to ProfessionalGambler.com and look around. It's free, and over 100 pages of original content by the most highly respected professionals in gambling. In closing, we all know fantasy sports is gambling. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But it's a sucker bet. Fantasy customers have been sucker punched by a sucker bet. To learn more or get information on how you can subscribe to Professional Gambler newsletter, go to ProfessionalGambler.com and follow me on Twitter at JV Miller Sports. Thank you and good luck.